It is official. Christian Horner has gone. And there'll be plenty of winners and some losers with this situation developing, I reckon. And by the way, this is the video for people who did not see or may not want to watch my 40-ish minute live stream on the subject. In any case, it's true. Horner has been released from his operational duties as per an official statement from Red Bull's head office. The ramifications of this decision, in my opinion, will be immense. But honestly, I think this is most likely the best thing that could have happened to Red Bull Racing. It may not seem like it in the short term, but it may provide the team a sense of direction and could have easily stopped it from spiraling down even more. This could be the start of something really interesting. And if you like what I've got to say, then drop a like on the video so that means more people can see what I have to say and maybe start to think of this as not some kind of doom for Red Bull Racing, but more like an opportunity. But yes, this is probably the biggest news story to have dropped within Formula One since Lewis decided to go to Ferrari. It's that important, folks. So, okay, who are the winners and losers of this decision? Well, I think the biggest winner out of all of this is the incoming team principal and CEO of Red Bull Racing, Laurent Mekies. Because I'm not going to lie, when I found out that Horner was to be replaced by Mekies within minutes of the original announcement, my first two words were, hell yeah! And the fact that an instant successor was had indicated to me that this was planned for quite some time, but was waiting for the right moment to enact, and after the British Grand Prix where Max Verstappen managed to limp home in 5th, that might have been it. Especially since I heard various reports, and many of you mentioned in the live chat, that there had been mention of bust-ups between Jos Verstappen and Christian Horner yet again. And that might have been one time too many for the board over at Red Bull and maybe the Thai side to tolerate. But if you are quite curious as to why I'm so excited for Lauren Meckis to be stepping into Christian Horner's boots, it's simply down to what the man's been able to do in his 18 months with the second Red Bull team. It's come on leaps and bounds since he started the job at the beginning of 2024, well, a few weeks beforehand, replacing Franz Tost. Back then, I thought that V-Carb or Visa Cash App Racing RB or whatever it was called was mainly going to be less of a junior operation and more like a big billboard for it to make money and therefore make the whole Red Bull organisation make even more money. But thankfully, that is no longer the case. Racing Bulls now has been restored to what it used to be. A place where future Red Bull talent can learn things in a more forgiving environment and far less cutthroat. And I think that could easily transfer to the senior team, which will mean that everyone or anyone who has the Red Bull emblazoned on their uniform, they'll be going, oh, thank God. Yes, I can't imagine Lauren is an unlikable fellow. And it also helps that he cut his teeth with the team as far in the past ago when they were known as Minardi. Then he became Toro Rosso's chief engineer before going off to the FIA, then to Ferrari as their racing director, and then back to where he is right now. So it's not like he's some sort of stranger to the Red Bull family. He's a fairly organic pick. But the biggest task will be to keep Max Verstappen, do whatever he can to build some trust again with the Dutchman, because it's quite clear that he and his father were rocked severely due to all of the rocking allegations that Christian Horner found himself in. But unfortunately, due to UK journalism laws and legal reasons, I can't really elaborate on that, so you have to go and look at it for yourself. But either way, that whole story from what we saw last year, it's not quite done. So Mekies' main job right now is to provide Max some kind of roadmap in where he wants to take the team. And hopefully it's something that Max likes, can get behind, or maybe just see some hope in it that he'll just give at least one more year to them to try and steady the ship. But I think one instant positive that will come Verstappen's way is that the team will no longer be the pantomime villains of Formula One, something that, as we know, Christian Horner was more than happy to roll with, often accepting the role of being the baddie. We are going to be getting a far more nurturing, considered, technically based team principal, who probably will not be paying any mind to those kind of shenanigans. So, as we will talk about later in this video, I personally think that Toto Wolff could stand to lose a fair bit because he's lost a major sparring partner. Who else am I going to throw insults at? Zach Brown. And I think a lot of people will actually be heard and taken seriously, including Max Verstappen, who has been saying time and time again, the issue is not to do with the drivers, it's to do with the car. Maybe Lauren might actually listen and go, hey, maybe the issue is the car. And in turn, this could be the death of the second seat curse, because I can't imagine Laurent Mekies would want that to be sustained, because for the longest time, he has been championing every single driver who has found himself in that seat and then come back with their tail between their legs, or is finding themselves to be struggling. And it may also allow Max Verstappen to have that little bit more influence. We'll get to that in a second. Because I also expect the news of Christian Horner's departure will be a huge plus for one Yuki Tsunoda, a man who has seen his confidence be sapped at record speed after having initially hoped he'd been the one to end the curse that had afflicted his past colleagues. Well, I mean, it did look like that at first. The team had made many promises to the media at the Japanese Grand Prix, surprise, surprise, that they were going to be turning a corner, that they would make allowances for Yuki Tsunoda's situation that may mean he could have a more tolerant RB21. But that quickly faded away. They reverted to type the team, and they were going to be going back to their Max Verstappen tunnel vision again, emboldened by Horner, and then manifested by Vache, and Paul Tsunoda has been left out in the dark ever since. Now, you might be thinking I'm being too kind, forgiving to Yuki Tsunoda, that, oh, I'm being biased because I've been wanting him to succeed at Red Bull. Yes, I have been wanting him to succeed, thank you very much. But I'm not the only one who's been wanting him to succeed. Lauren Mekies has been one of his biggest champions. In fact, he's been one of the most vocal people out there saying that the reason why Yuki hadn't been promoted sooner was incredibly weird and unjust. So for those of you thinking with Mekies coming in, that would make Tsunoda's seat shakier than ever, I would respectfully disagree. In fact, I think this could be the thing that will buy the Japanese driver that little bit more time, but not all the time in the world. What I'm thinking right now is that maybe for the sake of consistency and continuity, they may keep Yuki around for the beginning of 2026 at the very least, with Max Verstappen if they are able to keep him for that one more year at minimum. It just means they've got the same drivers going into the new regulation cycle. They need that kind of level playing field. They need as much stability as they can get. Because if they just completely change the lineup next year, it'll be yet another unknown for the team. So right now, with this huge change in the way that Red Bull is made up, they can't be changing more people. They need to try and keep people. And Yuki, oh, he'd be more than happy to stay. So that'll be easy to sort out. It'll at least get him through into the new era of Formula One. And then after that, it's up to him, Yuki. Okay, now we get to Max, because he is, at least on paper, a big winner here. He stands to gain quite a lot depending on how the team handles this transition. It's a really big gamble, but it could be a major opportunity for total control of a Formula One team. Because I don't think you need me to tell you, the relationship between the Verstappen camp, Max himself, and Christian Horner, yeah, it's been quite good for a long time, but in recent times it has understandably soured. All the stuff surrounding Christian taking away from the simple fact that Max just wants to have a car that he can go racing with and actually have a chance of winning it. All of that has been completely sidelined with all of the controversies, the pantomime shenanigans that Horner has been manifesting and encouraging. It's probably gotten to a head right now where Max simply cannot tolerate it, and has probably had a fair few words pointed toward the former team principal, and Jos obviously upping the ante even more. But maybe now there's an opportunity for a reset. Maybe there might be an opportunity to get to the negotiating table and have some meaningful conversations that may mean Verstappen can have even more authority afforded to him, maybe from a technical point of view, and he might be in a much better position than the last time he was in the situation where his future at the team was brought into question, 2019. At that time, it looked likely that maybe he could have gone elsewhere. But now, with 4 championships under his belt, he may have even more clout to get what he and his team want. And also, Mekies is somebody who wants a stable working environment. He doesn't want to cause friction or conflict or any drama, and that will be music to Max's ears, because sure, he might want to go for the best car on the grid, but he's got somewhere fairly comfortable at Red Bull. He knows exactly the team inside and out. It'd be a huge change, much like the change that Lewis Hamilton is experiencing at Ferrari. It's a huge upheaval. Can Max really be bothered at that, especially since he may quit the sport in a couple of years' time? He ideally would like to remain at Red Bull, and if Mekies can provide him a team in which he can, well, remain with Red Bull and not have to make any major changes, then fair enough. And if Lauren can listen to Verstappen's feedback and deliver a faster, more reliable car than Horner could, then maybe Max would stay with Red Bull for a little bit longer. giving the new management team the benefit of the doubt. Also, Max is not unaware of the wider world of F1. He knows exactly what Mekies has done at Racing Bulls. Look, it may not be a guarantor of him remaining with Red Bull through 2028, but it's the most sincere, the most genuine, and the most desperate gesture that Red Bull could afford him. Just going, look, fine, we'll get rid of Christian. Now will you please stay? I don't think that this is a too little too late moment. I think this might be a just enough and just in time moment. Because had this been delayed a few more races or even to the summer break, then I think it might have been too late. But one thing's for sure, come the Belgian Grand Prix, one of Max's favourite, there will be certainly a lot less tension within the Red Bull garage. And then the Red Bull Juniors. Yep, the entire gaggle will look to this and breathe a sigh of relief of their own. With the Racing Bulls leader in charge of the senior team now, the future direction of their squad is looking a lot more benevolent. Granted, Helmut Marko's still knocking around, his future may be a little more uncertain as to how present he will be in the pit lane, but at least the futures of these youngsters will look a lot less volatile in the coming years and a lot less intense. Yeah, of course, there will be expectations to be had with a Formula 1 team, especially Red Bull Racing, who have won so much in their prestigious time within the sport, but you do get the sense that Mekies' version of Red Bull will be a lot less unforgiving, a lot less relentless, a lot more diplomatic, a lot more grounded. And if you think that Marco's going to be getting the sack sometime soon, then think again. More likely there may be a re-evaluation of his place within the Red Bull Racing garage, because Max Verstappen still values him as an important linchpin, the only constant he has left now. I think now it's just Max and Helmut who are the mainstays of the glory days of Red Bull. And in turn, it may provide the junior team a little bit more of an opportunity to get Sebastian Vettel back within their ranks, because there have been talks between Sebastian and Helmut as to what things could he offer the Red Bull organisation. They are very early talks, but confirmed by Sebastian himself, and it may evolve into something quite informal, quite casual, but with Horner gone, there could be that little bit more scope in terms of the capacity of a job, or something that Sebastian is inclined, because he's got plenty of other stuff to be getting on with, and if Mohammed bin Sulayem, the president of the FIA, wants to have naturally aspirated V8 engines in a few years' time, then look to Sebastian. He knows exactly how to make that work. But yes, for anyone in Formula 2, Formula 3, Formula 4 or below, then the road to the future looks a little less bumpy. But in regards to who is in Formula 1 right now, or who is imminently going to be in Formula 1, so that's Iwasa, Lawson, Hajar, Lindblad, there are very likely some different scenarios with a varying degree of mixtures of wins. Well, unfortunately, I think Ayumu Iwasa, it's too late for him, unfortunately. With Honda departing, I really don't see any room for him left in the inn. Unless Red Bull pull a dramatic 180 and they cancel the powertrains movement at the very last minute, and then they decide to go begging and kicking and screaming to Honda and go, please keep us! Albeit as a customer of Honda, it really depends whether or not Papa Stroll's willing to play ball with that. But yeah, phone time, I really doubt that. That's just me throwing it out there. For Hajar, this is a huge cause for celebration. Waiting at least one more year before stepping up potentially into a seat overseen by a friendly face will provide more experience than what might have happened with Horner in charge. He could have easily been promoted as early as this year had things gone alright with Yuki more, and therefore what we will see come 2027 or something is a far more complete version of Isaac Hajar approaching 50 Grand Prix under his belt, which is not a bad number to have considering what Oscar Piastri can do in a top-tier car, with him having only just surpassed the 50 Grand Prix barrier. To partner up with Max Verstappen, or Yuki Tsunoda if Max leaves, or if both Yuki and Max leave, then he may get the promotion up with maybe Max and Liam Lawson. About Lawson. Yeah, he may not be as celebratory as Tsunoda or Verstappen or Hajar, but this might give him a little bit more hope. It might give him a little bit more of a reprieve, especially if Arvid Lindblad is kept within F2 for next year. Wait, hang on, Law. Surely that would mean that Arvid would be considered a loser here. Well, in theory, yes, but then at the same time, there is no rush to get Arvid in. He's got his super license. He can still be a reserve driver for Red Bull Racing or Racing Bulls. They could easily do something than what Haas did with Oliver Behrman last year, and give him way more FP1 sessions than are deemed mandatory or necessary. He could easily have 6, 7, 8 FP1 outings just to make sure that he is ready to go come 2027 or something. By that time, he'll be around the age of 19, he'll have had far more exposure to Formula 1 like Kimi Antonelli had throughout 2024. He just will be a more complete rookie by the time he steps in there. There won't be that rush anymore, I think, that Horner was desperate to have his own version of Antonelli in the car, and certainly the Silverstone FP1 session was a boost since, well, Arvid didn't crash the car, like how Kimi crashed the car in his FP1 session at Monza. So therefore, I do think there'll be far less pressure to get Arvid in the car right now, and instead, just focus on the drivers that they have right now. If Laurent can sustain the current lineup in both teams, then that'll be great. For Arvid, he'll get another year in F2 just to learn the ropes and travel with the Formula 1 team as a reserve driver. He may have a more concerted effort for the F2 championship. He is in somewhat contention this year, but next year, he could be even more complete himself. And to have the Formula 2 championship under your belt might be a nice little boost for his own morale. I mean, yeah, Max could throw a spanner in the works and decide not to stay with Red Bull for next year, and in that case, then Arvid will get the call-up. But I could easily imagine at Racing Bulls he will be given far more time to learn, and the experience will be far more forgiving for all concerned. And now, the losers. And, well, Christian Horner is obviously the biggest immediate loser from this decision. He led Red Bull Racing from the beginning. The team is Christian Horner, or at least it was, because he's won multiple drivers and constructors championships as their leader. He's built the team from the ground up. It's still a huge achievement and something that shouldn't be taken away from him because he did do that. I mean, yeah, losing out on that job you helped manifest for over 2 decades, the longest serving team principal before, the last 24 hours happened, it's gonna still leave his career in somewhat of a limbo. But the question is, though, will anyone want to accept the offer he may be having? Sure, you might be thinking that, he could just swan off to his best buddy Flavio and become the team principal over at Alpine. Well, that might be the case, but it all depends on what kind of situation there is regarding gardening leave. If he has been released from operational duties, or he's been given the sack, then there might be a chance for him to jump into another ship instantaneously. There might not be. We don't know the minutiae of the details. It could be akin to the gardening leave that Ron Dennis was given when he was exited out of McLaren. And yes, of course, I know very much about the Ferrari rumours, since Fred Vasseur's contract is up for renewal at the end of the year. The CEO of the Ferrari car company, Benedetto Vigna, has said that they are still in discussions. This might open the door for Christian to become the new TP at Ferrari, because he does have plenty of experience, but again, that employment tribunal, that civil one, that's going to be a very huge question mark. Whatever happens will dictate what Horner can do. Because if it does end up going against him, then, no one within Formula 1 will touch him with a 10-foot pole, a 100-foot pole. No one will go near him. But anyway, Christian's influence of Red Bull Racing, it's well and truly over. He's lost his baby, and it does make me think that maybe Porsche, when looking at this news, will be having a little bit of a chuckle, since it was Horner's determination to keep that influence is what scuppered that particular deal, where it would have been a Red Bull Porsche instead of Red Bull Ford. But yeah, the powertrains project, that's something he really wanted, to have full works autonomy. He won't get to see it. And you know what? Ironically, I think another big loser of Christian Horner leaving Red Bull will be one Toto Wolff. He's not going to have a sparring partner anymore. And with Horner gone, Toto becomes the longest-serving team principal within Formula 1, having been so since 2013. And something a bit more tangible is that maybe this situation where Christian Horner leaves the team, Red Bull, this might be actually a huge killer blow for Toto's own negotiations with Max Verstappen. This is something I don't think that he expected right now at such a critical point in any sort of discussion, which we know is ongoing. Thanks, George, for blabbing. But I can easily imagine that all of these talks that Toto and Max have been hinging on the fact that Red Bull is just completely and utterly unstable. Well, with Laurent Mekies coming in, trying to make things more stable, and has proven to be able to do that at Racing Bulls after a very uncertain beginning, then this may sort of, put the discussions on hold. Or maybe it might nix them altogether. In that case, Wolff loses his best chance to lure Verstappen away in years. He could, Max, become the de facto central pillar of Red Bull with total authority and oversight in terms of how the car is developed. That would be more workable to him and his teammates, and be a far less spontaneous organisation and a far less pantomime dramatic one, something in which he despises. Oh, and by the way, Chief Marketing Officer Oliver Hughes and Group Director of Communications Paul Smith have also left, so yeah. In terms of the whole pantomime vibe, this might be another indicator because, well, the marketing will certainly change, how the communications are conveyed will be changing. So yeah, this is happening right now, folks. There is still stuff ongoing. So thanks, Thomas Mayer, reporter of Formula 1 News. But yes, getting back to Toto, I just don't think that Mercedes can offer something similar to what Red Bull may be offering Verstappen right now as we speak. You really think that the board of directors will allow Max Verstappen to just rule the roost, overrule the likes of Toto Wolff, whose team he owns a third of? Because the difference here between Christian and Toto is that Toto has skin in the game. He is an effective paper billionaire. thanks to Mercedes' success. And yeah, he may stand to gain with Max coming in, but Max may not want to come in because, well, he might have a juicier deal being able to run the show in Milton Keynes. Yeah, I don't think Toto can match that. Wolff loses a reliable enemy in Horner. Their on and off track rivalry motivated both camps to do better, giving Mercedes a psychological edge at times to make them the superior one, whilst Red Bull looked like the scrappy underdogs or the desperate ones. Yeah, don't expect that from Laurent Toto. He's far more reserved, far more agreeable, diplomatic, willing to talk quietly and respectfully. And whilst Toto will appreciate that, he may miss that immediate boost from just saying, look at Christian, look at how pathetic he is. We're not like that at Mercedes, everyone. Come on, meds. If they slug Red Bull now and kick them while they're down, it's going to make them look like the bullies, whereas Red Bull, they're just trying to survive, damn it. Because if it all pulls off well and Mekies is able to make things far more harmonious at Red Bull, then, you know, Mercedes have not got anything left in terms of ammunition anymore. Yeah, it'll be a shame for us because there's a little bit less drama. It's a little bit less exciting because there's potentially a nice guy in charge of Red Bull, but it's something that Red Bull needed to do. And another potential loser could be the people who worked under Christian Horner and may still remain loyal to him, because there's going to be a lot of change happening in the next few weeks and months or even days that they may not agree with, that the people that have risen up the ranks at Red Bull but have not quite reached senior status most likely were hired by Christian Horner and therefore maybe modelled their own working styles underneath what Christian was able to do because, well, it provided so much success over the year. And, most importantly, if Mekies starts to bring in people from Racing Bulls over to Red Bull Racing, since, well, Racing Bulls has got a facility in Milton Keynes now, so the transfer wouldn't be all that difficult. And if he's able to convince people over at Ferrari to come over to Red Bull Racing for potential senior opportunities, then this could undermine any Horner loyalist even more. And then, speaking of another Red Bull employee, another big loser here could be the team's technical director, the successor to Adrian Newey, Pierre Vacher. With Horner gone, this is a very, very important situation and development for the French technical director in charge of the whole division and the widget and how the car is, well, designed. Because even though he recently got a contract extension through 2028, that may not mean a hill of beans in this situation, since there's so much change going on at that team. He may still lose his job, or he may find his job redefined. He may be pushed aside, akin to how Dan Fellows was pushed aside over at Aston Martin and then eventually just wandered off. And it also means that the responsibility for improving the RB21 rests on Vacher's shoulders exclusively. He is the one solely responsible now for where it goes. Horner can no longer be blamed because, well, he's out of the picture. Mekies can't be blamed since, well, he's just stepping in to discover this particular burden. And the Frenchman could easily replace the technical department with brand new people for finding new energy. A mid-season reshuffle could happen, but do pay attention to what happens with Pierre. I've been saying this the last few months now, that you've got to be looking at where the car is going, how it's developed, and the reluctance to open up the operating window, ultimately, to just appease Max for no reason because Max doesn't necessarily want it. He doesn't mind what kind of car it is so long as he can make it work. This may mean that, like I said, Vacher could find his job redefined if he's not sacked, or having to answer to somebody who may come in as a brand new chief engineer-like position. Perhaps maybe from a certain Jody Eggington, who is currently working over at Red Bull Advanced Technologies, which, by the way, I found out via Callum Nicholas's book, now Red Bull Ambassador, is a place where people within the Red Bull fold are sent off to just keep them within the family, keep them sweet, give them a nice little pay rise, because people over there are not beholden to the Formula 1 cost cap, and I think it's a really good tactic. I think it's a very shrewd one. I think that's exactly what's happened with Eggington, is that Mekies could bring Eggington in to become the new chief designer of the RB21 and then the RB22, and therefore try and find some ways of bringing in elements of the V-Carbo too, which seemingly work quite well. Max quite likes it. He thinks it's quite an easy car to drive, and there have been many instances this year where either Hadjar or Lawson or both has outqualified Verstappen and Tsunoda. So that's something they've really got to take into consideration, including the efforts of Eggington. I don't think Vacher will come out of this completely unscathed. I think his job will see some changes of definition. So whether or not he will lose hard or just lose softly, that's still a bit of an uncertainty right now. But there are plenty of uncertainties to be had at the moment, folks. We are still learning things as we go. So yes, watch this space. Much like how you should watch this space, in which I spent time in Austria for this year's Grand Prix. To watch what I got up to and see what it's like getting to do a pit lane tour and then a tour of the track, including other things, watch this video next, straight after this one.